What's up, my good peoples? Welcome to the Be Transformed podcast, where we're talking about ideas that stimulate wholesome thinking into identity, purpose, vision, and action. I am James Anderson, and today we're listening to a message from our BT community group. This is a group that meets online twice a month. All these talks can be found on our website at teambtransformed.com, and you go into the menu section and you look up community group. So without further ado, let's get into it. As we've been kind of thinking about this year, the words that came up for 2026 was the year of breakthrough and success. Last time we were talking about creating momentum in life, and maybe creating momentum in an area of life where there's not currently some momentum. And even, where some of the things that God is calling us into, are some of these things, they challenge our paradigm. Some of these things, they are absolutely pulling us beyond our comfort zone into, new realms of growth and destiny. And it's interesting, the year of breakthrough and success, because this breakthrough is it's an important piece of the journey, because the things God is calling us into requires that we become free from some of these other things that maybe we've been carrying around with us on the journey. And so when I think about breakthrough, I think about the fact that it's already done. When we talk about being free from something, like today, there's kind of two parts to this talk. We're going to talk about breakthrough from the past, and we're going to talk about breakthrough from perceived limitations. And when I think about breakthrough and freedom from the past, I think about the fact that it's already done, right? When, whatever breakthrough you need, it's already available. It's already happened. In Isaiah 43:18-21, it says, "Forget the former things. Do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I am making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland. The wild animals honor me, the jackals and the owls, because I provide water in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland, to give drink to my people, my chosen, the people I formed for myself, that they may proclaim my praise." Right? He's like, forget the former things. Don't dwell on the past. He's like, see, I'm doing a new thing. It's like, it springs up, like it's already been growing. Like, have you not perceived it? The things that it's like, we have access to freedom. And all we have to do is we have to learn we have to build a mentality that's able to manifest the reality. And so, Miles Monroe taught us about this concept that before, it's like when God made you, it was proof that you were already finished. And that's because God doesn't start anything in the physical until it was finished in the spiritual. When God called Abraham, he said, "Hey, I'm going to turn you into a mighty nation," right? Your descendants are going to be as numerous as the stars in the sky, as numerous as the sand on the seashore. That was vision. That was a picture of the future. He was saying the end from the beginning. So he took Abraham and Sarah, right? and they had one son of promise. But the mission and the vision was, hey, you're going to have these descendants that are going to be enormous, and here's all the different things that are going to happen along this journey. God had already finished the plan before he began, before he called Abraham, right? He's like, hey, leave your family, leave this place and go to a land that I will show you. God already had this thing sorted out. It's the example is, if you're going to build a building, before a builder ever puts a hammer to a nail, that building needs to be complete on paper, right? So, somebody goes driving by a plot of ground, right? An empty lot, and there's weeds everywhere. It doesn't look like anything. Doesn't look like much. It's been there forever. People drive by it all the time. You don't think anything of it. Well, one day somebody drives by and they're like, what if we could buy that plot of land and build this building? And they start just going through the process of dreaming, right? And they think about what is the purpose for this building. The purpose dictates design, right? So it's like, what are we going to do with this building? What are people going to come and do? Is it going to be office spaces? Is it going to be housing? Is it going to be a big conference center? Do we need, a kitchen, big open meeting area? What are all the different things this building needs to be able to do the very thing that I want it to do? You got to go through all those processes, right, to be able to create a legitimate plan. Because you can't go and build a building without first having this plan done. And so once you kind of decide, okay, here's the different things I want, here's why I want it, here's kind of like what I'm thinking for the design, then it's got to go through the architect, and they got to go through all the different bits and bobs of structural integrity and all these different things. If we want it to look like this, then structurally it's got to be this, that made out of this, and blah blah. It's got to go through all these details. And when you're done with all these details, you have this thing called a blueprint, which is this completed building, which was once just an idea worked out into a legitimate plan that now on paper this building is complete. And this is how God operates. He first finishes it before he begins. The building is finished before it can be started. You could drive by sometimes that plot of land where people make their blueprint, and there's, again, the plot of land. It's still full of weeds. It's not flat. It's not leveled out. There's nothing's happened to it except that there's a sign. And on this sign is a painting of this building, which was just an idea, but here's this finished, beautiful building with like beautiful landscaping all around it. That picture is a picture of what is to come, because the building's already complete on paper before you can begin. And when I think about breakthrough, I think about this fact that it's already done, right? Jesus already paid the price. So there's not like, when we're trying to get free of some things in the past, there's not a lot of work that you need to do to be able to qualify for it or make it happen, right? You don't got to go into emotional turmoil, emotional gymnastics. Really, we just need to learn how to think correctly. So, God never starts anything in the physical without first finishing in the spiritual. So we got to build a mentality that can manifest the reality. Bill Johnson talks about, he's like, it's like having sometimes life feels like it's like you got $1 million in the bank, but you don't know how to access it, right? You have access to certain things, but we haven't quite figured out how to actually make a withdrawal from the bank. And so I think breakthrough is like that. And so when we're talking about breakthrough from the past, I think it's possible that whilst we have all been on the path of purpose, right? We've been together for some time, definitely getting into some new ideas, getting into, business and real life and all these different aspects. As we've been growing and progressing, it's possible that we're still carrying some things from the past that we don't need to carry anymore. Where like maybe there was some situations and some instances where that played a role in building your self-concept, but it's like that building block isn't actually any good, right? Like maybe a person of influence when you were younger, maybe a parent or a pastor or a relative or whatever, maybe they said something negative, and that became and a piece of that became one of the building blocks of your self-concept. And so your self-concept's got a couple of these negative ideas that causes you to hold a picture of yourself and hold a picture of God that just isn't quite accurate. Right? Maybe there's some things that happened that we carry along with us that we just don't need to carry any longer. There's breakthrough for that. There's this story of a group of people who were they were on like a multi-week backpacking trip, and they had got to a point where they were going to summit a mountain, and they had set up camp. And then they were going to go up this mountain. Well, the guide, had kind of had a group meeting and said, hey, this journey that we're about to go on is pretty arduous, right? It's pretty strenuous. It's a technical climb, and you're really going to want to consider what you bring on this trip, right? They had set up camp. He's like, you can't take too much. You take too much weight, and it's going to prevent you from getting to the top. Well, this one young guy, he was just like, whatever. You guys are all weak. He's like, I'm going to take whatever I want. I'm plenty strong. So everybody's gathering up their stuff, packing up, getting ready to go up this mountain. And this young guy, he's thinking about this trip, and he's like, man, this mountain's going to be awesome. It's going to be beautiful. Like, what are all the things that I want to bring that are going to help me really enjoy this experience? And he's thinking, we're going to be up high. You're going to be able to see forever. Man, I better bring my big old camera. And I don't know which kind of lens I'm going to want, so I better bring a couple different lenses. Bam, that's a certain amount of space, and that's a certain amount of weight. He's like, well, it's going to be beautiful up there. And once we get to the top, I'm going to be hungry. So maybe I should bring some crackers, some cheese. It's like, well, if I'm going to bring some crackers and cheese, I better bring some wine. I better bring some glasses. This guy's got a wine bottle. He's got some glasses. He's like, well, if we're going to have a picnic on top, I better bring this big old cushy blanket so I got somewhere soft to sit at the top to really enjoy this experience. And so everybody gathers up their stuff, and they're kind of amassing together to then head up this hill. And everybody can tell that this dude has overloaded his pack for this trip, right? He didn't quite get the message. And, and so the guide's like, hey, man, you might want to reconsider all that stuff that you're planning on taking. The kid's like, yeah, whatever. And he just takes off. Right? He's like, not only am I strong enough, but I'll beat all you guys up there. So anyway, so he takes off, and everybody else just kind of shakes their head, smiles to each other, and starts going down the trail. Well, it doesn't take too long down the trail where it starts to get pretty strenuous and pretty technical. And all of a sudden the group turns this bend, and there is the bottle of wine and some cups. And they start walking further, and then soon they see that big old blanket that he wanted to take. And then later on they see this camera bag, which is packed full of camera and the lenses. And the point of the story is that you can't take it all to the top. There's some things that you got to let go of to go to where God is calling us, right? And the thing that I think is fascinating about this is that the places that God is calling us to individually and corporately, it's like the default of moving in the direction that God is calling us into is automatically creating healing and restoration, right? Because the places that God is taking us is requiring a legitimate identity. And so we can't be having these broken self-concepts and this weak identity at the same time as going to where God is calling us. It's like, this is kind of a weird picture, but it's like if the place that God is calling us to, right? It's like there's like a small tunnel, and there's these ideas that that aren't quite right for our identity and our self-concept and what we think we're capable of. And it's like they're kind of like these big rocks on our back. And as we squeeze through the space, there's not enough room for these rocks that are on our back. And it's like those rocks, as we go forward, they get knocked off. It's like it's this restoration process through purpose that is happening. And so, so as we think about the past, there are 3 things that you can do with your past. Number 1, we can learn from it. Extreme ownership says, okay, what could I have done differently to have brought about a different outcome? It's like, all right, this person said this or did this, but like I could have done a better job of not getting so emotionally connected to what they said. I could have prevented that from thinking about it so much that it became part of my identity. What could I have done differently? This is a way that we can learn from the past without being victims. And this is important. History is important because there's lots of things that we can learn from what has happened. So one thing we can do with our past is we can learn from it. The second thing we can do with our past is we can forgive it. The most effective process of forgiveness that I've ever learned didn't come from being in a church service, didn't come from a theologian or a pastor. It came from this personal development program that Carolyn and I purchased called the Paradigm Shift. And it blows my mind how functional and practical and simple this was. Because I can picture back to hearing some messages about forgiveness, and people put all these things on top of it. They're like, well, you can forgive, but you can't forget. It's like we don't want to justify what people did. It's like, shut up. It's like it creates all this like it makes it seem complicated and not even possible, or not even practical, or not even something that creates healing inside of you. But like this process was the most effective thing I'd ever heard, and it's crazy simple. To forgive is to say, hey, I release so-and-so, right? Fill in the blank. I release this person, right? A parent, relative, pastor, organization, whatever. I release so-and-so to their highest good. Highest good is like wealth, prosperity, abundance, health, beautiful relationships, everything good. I release this person to their highest good. And I release myself to my highest good. Right? Anytime you remember that person and an emotion tries to come up, you're just like, nope, I release that person to their highest good, and I release myself to my highest good. The second thing you can do with your past is you can forgive it. Necessary. The third thing you can do with your past is you can leave it where you found it. The interesting thing about our past is that it's in the past. The only way you can access the past is through your memory. And here's an interesting truth. You empower the word you cultivate. You empower the word you cultivate. The interesting thing about how the mind works is that when I bring a memory back up, I am actually keeping that memory alive. It's like when I review that past event, an event is like, it's a memory charged with an emotion. So especially when you have something, that's kind of traumatic, or something that's really, you're kind of held onto for a while, that past event has a bit of an emotion connected to it. And so that means that when you think about that situation, you automatically start feeling that emotion. And what's happening is for all intents and purposes, you are actually reliving that event that happened some time ago that you wish didn't even happen. But when we go back and we think about it, and then we feel the same emotions, we're actually reliving the very thing that we could have done without. And what happens when we relive it is that it's like we're watering and fertilizing this past memory. And there's really only one reason we keep going back to these old memories. It's like there's a hope, whether it's conscious or subconscious, that somehow you can go back and you're going to change what happened. You're going to somehow change detail that's going to make it all okay. Or it's like you're somehow going to make sense of what happened. If that was the case, if by remembering a negative past event, feeling it again, going through it, remembering what happened, and then getting your imagination involved, where you start to picture here's what I could have said, here's what I could have done, this is what they would have said, and this is what they would have done. If we could in fact change the past by going back and reliving it over and over and over, we already would have changed it, right? Like, I guarantee we've all already done plenty of work of remembering the past, that if it was in fact possible to change it, or to change a detail, or to make any kind of sense of it, if you could do that by reviewing it, we would have already done it. We've already run in circles enough times where we would have had some positive results if that was the case. The problem is that's not the case. You are not going to change the past, period, because it's already gone and done. But we can for sure leave it where we found it. And it's important. It is important. Because these things from the past are like the stones in our packs. And we have to take those stones out, man. I mean, if you think about having a backpack on and going on a long walk, and you just got these big old freaking boulders, in your pack. They're taking up space and they're freaking heavy, right? It creates unnecessary fatigue that serves no purpose. And the things that God is calling us into is saying, hey, we got to ditch these rocks. You got to put them down. We got to take them out of the pack. Because the places that he's wanting to take us, it's going to require that we have a little bit lighter load. And remember, last time we were talking about momentum. It's like when you've got unnecessary friction from fear and doubt, right? Or any of these, like a low self-concept. These things create unnecessary friction, which create unnecessary fatigue, which slows your forward progress. And so the things that God's calling us into requires that we drop and put down some of these rocks. In Isaiah 61, 1 through 3, it says, "The Spirit of the Sovereign Lord is upon me, because the Lord has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim freedom for the captives, and to release from darkness the prisoners, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor and the day of vengeance of our God, to comfort all who mourn, and provide for those who grieve in Zion, to bestow on them a crown of beauty instead of ashes, and the oil of joy instead of mourning, and a garment of praise instead of the spirit of despair. They will be called oaks of righteousness, a planting of the Lord to display his splendor." So it says, right, he sent me to proclaim the good news, to bind up the brokenhearted, and to proclaim freedom for the captives, and to release from darkness the prisoners. This is like the prison gate gets opened, and then there's a declaration, hey, you're free. The fact is that each one of us has to walk out that prison. It's open. He proclaimed freedom. Freedom is yours. However, there's a role we play in actually grabbing hold of that freedom. Right? He says to bestow on them a crown of beauty instead of ashes. We got to create a mentality that can manifest the reality. All right? So if we got this backpack and, and let's just say we've known for some time that we're carrying some weight, but, we just didn't think too much about it. We just say, hey, man, we're taking steps of purpose and we're moving forward. But maybe these ideas from the past, they would come up and we'd be like, man, these are kind of heavy. And maybe we got used to saying, hey, these are heavy. And as we were thinking about them being heavy, we'd be like, man, I got some fatigue. Like it's kind of like I'm tired. I'm carrying this backpack is heavy and I'm tired. And maybe we got used to carrying this stuff around. And when we go to put our pack down, take these rock out, put our pack back on, it's possible that even though we just put down these boulders, these things of the past, these negative ideas that have been pieces of the construct of our self-concept and identity and of who God is and what it is that we're capable of. It's possible that after we put these rocks down and we put our pack back on, that we still have the same mentality. So even though we no longer carry the weight, we're so used to thinking that we're carrying the weight. We're so used to acknowledging the fact that we're carrying the weight. We're so used to, communicating about the fatigue that even though we put the rocks down, we have a mentality that actually puts the rocks back in the pack. It's possible to have freedom for a moment, but not create a new mentality that is congruent to the truth. Because if I put the rocks down, my pack is no longer heavy. So I can't keep going around saying it's heavy. I can't keep going around saying I'm tired. Even though I used to say that, I have to learn to think differently, that is no longer the truth. Because you can't throw ashes on the top of the crown of beauty. Right? If you traded mourning for the oil of joy, you can't keep going on in mourning. If you traded out despair for the garment of praise, you can't keep on going in despair. Oh, there's no solution. There's no problem. I got financial problem. I got this problem. I got that problem. I don't know what to do. There are no solutions. You can't keep going around in despair. We have to build a mentality that can manifest the reality. I don't know. Anybody got any thoughts on any of that when we talk about breakthrough from past experiences and, putting some rocks down and building a new mentality? Anybody got any thoughts on that before we move on to the next section?
I think for me, I can definitely relate to the, trying to go back and fix something, trying to relive it, trying to change the end result, and just the freedom that can come from not trying to circle back anymore. Because when you can't change something, all you're doing is exhausting yourself mentally to try to come up with a different result, and it really holds you somewhere you don't want to be. And so just the freedom of actually leaving the past in the past, it's all we can do is learn from it, in the sense that it's like you can do something different in the future if you have a similar situation, or you have whatever. We can change how we respond to stuff in the future, but we can't go back and fix something that already happened. And so just the freedom of that we will never solve anything by circling and holding it with us. So just the power of those steps of learning from it, forgiving it, and leaving it.
Yeah, you can't go back and change your own response. That's a good one. That's that piece where it's like I release them and I release myself. Yeah, Albert.
Yeah, I think for me, it's like you've been speaking about me, maybe. Because I think there is part of my life whereby I really did hold on the past for a very long time, until I wasn't able even to recognize myself anymore, because I used to live a life of blaming people. Why did they do this? If it's not for them, I couldn't be where I am. If it's not because of them, maybe I'll be doing better by then. But I don't know how it happened, and I think what I did for me, it's like I forgave them, or I forgave the people that I used to think they hurted me in the past, and they were the reason as to why my life was like in a mess. Was like, yeah. So for me, I think I just did try to forgive them. I'll forgive it. Also, I learned from it. But leaving it from where I found it, maybe I have to work on that. Yeah, maybe I really have to work on that. But I think the moment I forgave and I learned from it, God began to do, I think, different things in my life. And yeah, from there, I was able to see the light, and things worked out differently. But a bigger part of my life, I was in that blemishership of why me? Why is it that they did this to me? Why are they not apologetic? Why are they not coming to make things right? Why is it that they don't even think like I'm still existing, man? I'm a human being. I'm here. I'm struggling, man. Guy, can you come and yeah, yeah, but I think so far so good. I think I'm willing to do the last part, leaving it in the past. But
Mm.
because somebody said forgiving is not forgetting. But I think I'll really wanna work out that. I think most of us we remain stuck in a place just because we don't accept it by ourselves. We wanna remain in denial for a very long time, and I think for me, I did accept that happened, and from that, I had to forgive everybody that I was holding in my life, and I had now to move on.
Mm.
Yeah, so you're speaking what most of my life suck I've been through. So
Mm.
yeah, that's true. Thank
Yeah, you said somebody said forgiveness is not forgetting, but remembering didn't do anybody any good to move on. I'll tell you that much. Yeah, yeah, it's huge breakthrough, right? We can't be carrying this garbage from the past. Yeah, so the first part of breakthrough, right, is breakthrough from the past. So check it. Here's the truth. We got to build a mentality that can manifest the reality. So we got to think congruent or equal to or right alongside of the truth. There is no benefit to ever think a thought contrary to how God thinks. There's no benefit to think of yourself as broken when God says you've been made whole. There is no benefit to thinking something that God does not think. He proclaimed liberty to the prisoners. There's no point in believing that you're bound when you're actually free. So the past no longer defines us, and we are bound by nothing. I mean, this is like you could say this out loud, right? I am bound by nothing. There is nothing holding you back. There's nothing preventing you from moving forward. You're not bound. All you have to do is stop going back and stop thinking about what could have been or what we could have done or what they did, right? Because anytime we go back and we relive it, it's like if you go out in your yard and there's like you've got a garden and there's a piece of garden that you wish was like lush and beautiful, but it just doesn't get that much attention, so it doesn't look very nice. But then you go to this other section of the yard and there is this big, fat, thick weed. And you wish that this stupid thing would die. But the problem is it's the place you spend the most time. And so it's like when we keep reliving over and over and over these past events, it's like we're going to this garden and there's this giant stalk of weed. And it's got a nice walking path to it. It's got these nice rocks, around the border. There's a nice bench because you spend so much time thinking about things of the past. Where the rest of the garden, man, where life is and abundance and growth and development is, that stuff is like it gets neglected. But if focus and attention and reliving the past keeps it alive, then it's neglect that shuts down that pathway. So when we stop going back and we're like, no, I'm not going back. I release that thing and that person to their highest good and I release myself. None of that matters because none of that stuff in the past is going to change anything. But what I do today can change everything. So there's breakthrough from the past, right? We're putting these rocks down. We're not picking them back up. We're creating a new mentality that is based upon the true reality. So the second piece of this is breakthrough through perceived limitations. There was an interesting belief that was held some time ago around the sport of running. It was actually believed that if you ran a mile faster than 4 minutes, if you could run it under 4 minutes, the belief was that your heart would explode. Like Carolyn just kind of like this like stupid. But there's a lot of things. There's a lot of belief limitations that we believe. Like, hey, man, that's like at the time seems crazy legitimate, but in reality, is quite silly. So, in 1944, Arn, or however you say his name, from Sweden, he ran a mile in 4 minutes and 1.6 seconds. So he's getting close, right, to his heart exploding. And then 1 year later, 1945, Gunder, also from Sweden, ran a mile in 4 minutes, 1.4 seconds. So he ran the mile faster by 0.2 seconds, right? Even closer to having his heart explode. What a weird perceived limitation, right? It was an unknown area of life, right? Where like doctors really thought, hey, if you pushed your body this hard, your heart is going to be pumping so hard that it's literally going to explode. Like, I don't even think a heart does that. I think it just stops. It actually blows up. So you got these two guys who are really close to the perceived limitation. And for 10 years, there has been no progress on this world record. People have been running, but there's this belief that it's not possible to run faster than a 4-minute mile. Well, 10 years later in 1954, Roger Bannister breaks the 4-minute barrier. He runs a mile in 3 minutes, 59.4 seconds. Woo! And guess what? His heart didn't explode. But, when I think about this gap, if we believe that something is not possible, there's a good chance we are not going to go for it because it's not possible. But people decided to go to the moon, which seems ridiculous. It still seems ridiculous. It still is insane that people figured out how to get to the moon. But there was a time where everybody thought that was stupid. There was a time when the Wright brothers, had an idea of to be able to fly, to soar in the sky like a bird, right? Their father was a bishop, and their father said, that's the devil. That's the devil. Man wasn't created to fly. And there was a perceived limitation because it was beyond their paradigm. It was beyond their belief system. And so it's like there's no way that doing something so new and so crazy is actually going to be beneficial. And there's people then come up with these barriers and say, here's how far you can go, and you can go no further. It's interesting because it's a 10-year gap where nothing happened, and then Roger Bannister steps over the boundary. 46 days later, John Landy from Australia beats Roger Bannister's time. There was a 10-year gap. Roger passes it. His heart doesn't explode. 46 days later, John Landry beats Roger's time. 3 minutes, 57.9 seconds, and his heart does not explode. And within a couple years after this, people in high school are breaking the 4-minute mile. You see what happens when one person steps over the perceived barrier, it creates a pathway for others to do the same. There are some cultural beliefs, traditions that build perceived limitations. There's some cultural beliefs, man, that says this, right? This box that I'm making. This is what life looks like, period. This is where you fit. This is what you do. This is what it looks like. Accept it. There's some cultural beliefs, man, that put these limitations that you can go this far and no further. Oh, you got this kind of business? Well, with that kind of business, you can only make this amount of money. You can only make enough money to survive, not to thrive. Don't even freaking try, because it won't work. Perceived limitation. Oh, you got a different kind of business and you want to make this amount of money? Woo, made that amount. That's the devil's volume, buddy. You want that amount of money, you're gonna be the devil's son. Perceived limitation. You get this amount of money, that's holy. You get this amount of money, that's the devil. It's a perceived limitation. It's made up. But people think certain kind of ways and say, this is what life looks like. Quit trying to go past it. Oh, you come from this family? Oh, you come from this village? You're from this tribe? You got this situation? You got that circumstance? Forget about it. You can only go this far. This is your limits. This is what you can do. This is what you're capable of. I know you keep talking about something over here, but this is as far as you can make it. There was no actual evidence that somebody's heart would explode like it didn't happen before. But there was an idea created by fear. The idea became a conclusion, and that conclusion became a belief system. That belief system then was somebody that then shared that belief with other people, and people got sold on the idea. And it was commonly thought that if you passed a certain arbitrary mark, if somehow you go 1 second beyond a 4-minute mile, your heart will explode. But all it takes is one person to say, you know what? That line you just drew in the sand, that's not where I'm going to stop. And you take one step beyond that boundary. And you just showed everybody what's possible. And what it does is it creates that pathway for other people to go right beyond it. I'm telling you, there's breakthrough in this season for perceived limitations, because the things God is calling us into, man. Remember, we said these things He's calling us into will challenge our paradigm. It challenges your belief. None of this is as far as I can go. No, that's part of that weak self-concept. He says, where you want to go, where you calling me is way over here, man. This is like right here. This is comfortable. You want me to do what? It's like, bro, that's like, whoa. There's breakthrough in this season from perceived limitations. Now check this out. In Isaiah 45, 12 through 13, and then also verse 18. This is God talking. It says, I have made the earth and created man on it. My hands, stretched out the heavens, and all their host I have commanded. I have raised him up, talking about man, in righteousness, and I will direct all his ways. How many of his ways? All. He shall build my city and let my exiles go free, not for price, no reward, says the Lord. He said, he shall build my city. Check this out. For thus says the Lord, who created the heavens, who is God, who formed the earth and made it, who has established it, who did not create it in vain, who formed it to be inhabited. I am the Lord, and there is no other. Check this. For thus says the Lord, who created the heavens, who is God, who formed the earth, right? All right, so we're establishing who did it and who is saying it. He said, I formed the earth and made it. I established it. To establish something is to confirm its legitimacy. You cannot deny it. It is undeniable and is unreversible. You can't change it. He said, I created the earth, and there's nothing you can do about it. He said, I did not create it in vain. I formed it to be inhabited. The thing that this has done for me is like it's only confirmed that what we teach about Genesis 1 is correct. That God created the world and he did it on purpose. He created mankind and he freaking did it on purpose. And he gave us something specific to do in this life. God created the world and he created it to be inhabited. It wasn't a mistake, right? Too many people, they're just trying to get to heaven. They're like, well, total restoration. That's okay. Once we die and we get to heaven, man, that's what it's all about. God is pretty invested on earth. He's pretty interested. Let your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. He's interested in taking the pattern of the kingdom and having it manifested on the earth. Check this out. I don't know if you've ever seen this, but here's a picture of the planets in our solar system. I don't know a lot about space, you know what I'm saying? But he's talking about Earth. Earth is this little guy right here. Here you got these other planets, they're huge. And then you got the sun, which is massive. Now, this is just our solar system. For all intents and purposes, it seems as if space goes on forever. And God is talking about how he formed earth and how earth he made to be inhabited with man whom he made on purpose in his image and in his likeness. The thing this does for me, God does not have a side project going on. You know what I mean? Like you think, okay, space is vast, right? If there's seemingly no end, who knows, God doesn't have another project going on where there's another earth formed with inhabitants. Like we're it. God so loved the world. He's crazy invested in this place that where we are right now. There are things that God is interested in us doing here on earth. Our call in BT, in Be Transformed, is in the marketplace. This is where our call is. This is where our mission is. I'm not saying other people don't have that call. I'm just saying this is our call. This is what we're called to. This is where we're meant to be, right? Everything we do has to do with real life, right? It has to do with Monday, with Tuesday, with Wednesday, right? It's not just about one day a week with a couple hours and then the rest of life doesn't matter. What we deal with is every day, all day, it matters. How much money you make matters. How you conduct yourself in business matters. The business that you're building in and with God matters. What you talk about at the dinner table matters. How you teach, train, and equip and deploy your children into a life of purpose freaking matters. What we do in this life matters. This is the call that is on us in the BT community. And when I read this, where God says, I did not create the world in vain. formed it to be inhabited. Quit trying to get off it. This is where we are meant to work. This is where we are meant to make a difference. This is where you are going to break through perceived limitations. And here's what's going to happen as we continue to do these things. Is that people are going to be like, dude, I saw you walk over that line. Show me how you did it. And you'll say, come with me. I'll show you exactly what I did to get there. I'll show you where I put down my rocks. Because you can put down your rocks. I'll show you the boundary line that I thought existed and everybody else thought existed. But I kept hearing God saying, dude, I dare you to take the next step. And I did. And you can do the same thing. This is why we operate in the marketplace. Because this is where the people are. The mission is to take the pattern and the functionality of the kingdom of heaven, that reality, that connection with the invisible manifested in the visible. This is our mission and this is our goal. This is where we operate because this is where the people are. This is where the change happens. This is where transformation happens. This is where we manifest the true reality of who God is, who we are, what this life is about, and how to get into it on purpose. We are meant to be the example that other people can follow into freedom, wholeness, and restoration, into identity, purpose, and freaking destiny. This is the call of the people of BT. This is what God has called us to. This is where we are going, and this is what we are doing. Your breakthrough creates the freedom and the ability for other people to experience the same thing. And that is by design. God is interested. The things that you are dreaming in God, God is interested in those things being created. God is interested. What we build in this life, it freaking matters. Look, Jesus is going to return. But until then, build things as if life is going to continue to go on. Build wealth that's going to impact your next generation and the generations to come. Build space of freedom and breakthrough and mentality that truly represents our true potential in God, so that other people can take the freedom that we are walking in and they can take it to the whole next level. What we do in this life matters. The things that God is calling us into in these next seasons, man, I'm telling you, they are significant. It matters for us, and by default, it then matters and impacts other people in an extremely positive way. So guys, that's 2026, man, the year of breakthrough and success. Breakthrough unto success. Guys, thanks so much for tuning in. Until next time, peace!